Hi, I'm Don from DonDronesOn. MAAC members in Canada have lost their exemption from the Transport Canada RPAS rules. And this is really shocking. Let's talk about what happened, what that means for the MAAC members, what they can do right now to get back in the air, and some longer-term possibilities. MAAC stands for the Model Aeronautics Association of Canada and has been in operation for over 70 years. There are over 350 clubs across Canada and 9,600 paying members. Most members fly fixed-wing model aircraft, whether they be gas-powered, electric, or gliders. But of course there are many others who fly model helicopters or quadcopter-style drones. When the current RPAS rules came into effect in 2019, Transport Canada gave the entire MAAC organization an exemption from the new rules, with some conditions, which I'll get into in a second. Why did they do this? Well, essentially MAAC lobbied TC for special treatment. Their key concerns were related to flying at clubs in controlled airspace and flying model aircraft over 25 kilograms, which would mean SFOCs in the new rules. And there are quite a few MAAC members who fly large RC-controlled gliders, which can fly effectively only at fairly high altitudes, well over 400 feet, where the thermals are the best. And again, SFOCs would be required to permit this with the new rules. In addition, MAAC clubs frequently held special model aircraft air shows open to the public. And prior to the pandemic, they held almost 400 events per year. And that would be pretty awkward under the new rules. So the argument was that these clubs have their own strict safety rules, have been operating in these locations for decades, safely, and in full cooperation with NAV Canada, local airports, and the communities. There had not been any incident with manned aircraft, ever. So why put all sorts of onerous restrictions in place, which would not change the safety element at all? And I agree, these clubs are operated well. They take safety extremely seriously. And unlike typical drone pilots, the members are normally flying at well-established, fixed locations, whether that be privately owned land, farmers' fields, or leased municipal facilities. These guys are different from drone pilots, incredibly and obviously distinct from people like me who can pop their drones up just about anywhere. So when the rules were announced, Transport Canada listened to MAAC and agreed and declared the MAAC members exempt from the RPAS regulations as long as they adhered to a set of 15 conditions. 10 of those conditions were related to the members and how they fly, such as following the club's safety code and altitude restrictions for their site. The other 5 conditions were how MAAC operated as an organization. One key condition was that MAAC could not sanction a new field in controlled or restricted airspace without a written agreement from the controlling agency, which was usually NAV Canada. Back in 2019, there were 58 clubs operating in controlled airspace, so this was an important consideration. And it worked. The exemption worked for years. But at some point in 2022, things went off the rails. And frankly, it's a bit murky to me what exactly happened. But it appears that some new club fields were being sanctioned without following that correct procedure and without NAV Canada's agreement. In late 2022, the MAAC executive discovered this was happening and realized that this needed to be fixed. They put out an internal MAAC communication that suspended operations for all MAAC members until things could get sorted out. They came up with a plan to audit every site, reauthorize the sites one by one, and fix those where there were problems. They plan to start with the low-hanging fruit, the sites in Class G airspace, and progressively get to the tougher ones by March. Now, they could have kept all this quiet, but instead they did the reasonable, mature thing and shared the issue and corrective action plan with Transport Canada. This was the right thing to do, followed the normal aviation approach to problem solving, and made sense. And the folks in TC they were dealing with seemed to agree. So in January 2023, MAAC started re-sanctioning their 350 plus fields one by one and had about 50 done by the end of January when out of the blue, Transport Canada lowered the boom. They said point blank that the exemption was no longer in effect due to breaches of Exemption Condition 3, sanctioning fields in controlled airspace without the required written agreements. Now, to me, this is akin to holding the whole class after school because one kid was chewing gum, but a whole lot more serious. I don't know why the entire exemption was squashed instead of just disallowing the fields that had been improperly sanctioned, or issuing a fine, or some kind of action commensurate with the offense. Do the police close down a highway when a few people are speeding? No. Do they shut down an airport when someone is caught with fingernail clippers in their carry-on luggage? No. That's not the way our society works. Corrective action or punishment or whatever is commensurate with the offense. In this case, the penalty appears to be grossly out of proportion. Nonetheless, that's what's happened. So the MAAC executive issued a statement to all members on February 25th with the news that the exemption was null and void, effective immediately. In order to fly legally, members would need to have at least a basic RPAS pilot certificate, and their aircraft would need to be registered, and they would need to follow all the Transport Canada RPAS rules. They did say that they were actively discussing the situation with TC, hoping that the exemption or something similar could be reinstated. So what lies ahead? Well, I see both short-term and medium-term actions are required. Let's start with the medium term. The right thing to do is to get that exemption reinstated, at least for the clubs that were properly sanctioned, which is of course the vast majority. Don't punish everyone, just deal with the clubs who breached the conditions for whatever reason. This is not likely to be fast, which is why I'm calling it medium term. I talked to the MAAC president, Mike Anderson, a few days ago to get the lay of the land. Unfortunately, there was no solution in sight at that point. The only tiny glimmer of hope is the fact that they haven't actually received the official piece of paper from TC. And in support, I've sent an email to my contact at Transport Canada stating what I think is a better outcome. And I'll bring it up at DPAC's quarterly meeting with TC in a few weeks. Now, if you're feeling frustrated, and you should be, you may want to consider sending a letter or email to your Member of Parliament or to the Minister of Transport, the Honourable Omar Agabra. If you choose to do that, please keep it polite, respectful, and constructive. There is absolutely no reason to go on a rant. State who you are, what you do, and the impact this change will have on you. And state the outcome you feel would be right, the re-establishment of an exemption for MAAC members. Again, this is going to take time, but a single letter, maybe yours, maybe the one that touches a nerve and makes the right thing happen. So in the meantime, in the short term, the reality is that MAAC pilots need to get at least their basic RPAS pilot certification and register at least the aircraft they're intending to fly in the near future. Fortunately, the exam for the basic certification is not that hard. It's online, multiple choice, 35 questions, and a passing grade of 65%. Most importantly, it's open book, and you have an hour and a half to complete it. It's $10 per attempt, but once you have it, it's good for life, with simple recency activities required every 2 years. Registering your aircraft is easy as well. The only catch being, it's $5 per plane. So if you have a large fleet, yeah, it could set you back. By the way, if you fly indoors or fly only control line planes or models under 250 grams, you're off the hook. You don't need to be certified and you don't have to register the planes. Now, if your club is in controlled airspace, you'll need to get your advanced certification, and that's a whole lot harder. A much tougher exam with less time plus an in-person flight review. I offer free video training for both the basic and advanced exam topics, free, including a series of videos that goes through each and every rule and translates them to plain language. Check out my channel's playlists or download my free training roadmap. There's links in the description below this video. Thousands of RPAS pilots have passed the exams after watching my videos. You don't have to shell out for ground schools or paid online classes. I strongly encourage you to obey the laws to the best of your ability and to continue to fly your models and enjoy the friendship of your local clubs. It's a great hobby and a ton of fun and still possible within the RPAS rules. Now, hopefully the exemptions will be reinstated in some form and allow for safe flying with fewer restrictions in the near future. In the meantime, get ready, have fun, and fly safely.